What is going on, everybody? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening for wherever you're tuning in from. My name is Jacob Bowman. I am the host of Sales Success Unleashed, and I am super excited for today's session. We're going to have a guest on where we're actually going to be breaking down some of her cold outreach and some of her templates, her sales funnel, and we're going to be building out and kind of tweaking her strategy a little bit. So I'm super stoked to get into that. And before I do get into that, want to let you know to join our community at discord.gg/furlough. We'd love to have you as a part of our growing entrepreneurship community. You can follow us on all of our socials, Furlough on LinkedIn, and then you can also visit us at furloughtv.com to subscribe to our YouTube channel. This entire replay is going to be broadcasted on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Discord. And you're going to be able to give me 2 seconds. Sorry about that. You're going to be able to watch the replay, get all the good nuggets here, and all that fun stuff. So super excited to have everyone on board. If you're tuning in from either Discord or YouTube or LinkedIn, put your questions, comments in the chat. This is a collaborative event. We want you to be involved. I am excited. I am thrilled to answer all of your questions. And as we bring on the guest, we are totally open for feedback. I know there's going to be a lot of things that we're going to be discussing about different channels that we're reaching out through. We're going to be dissecting email templates. We're going to be looking at LinkedIn outreach messages. We're going to be talking about ideal clients, who to target, generating leads, all this fun, amazing stuff. So we value your input, and we would really, really, really love for you to interact with us. So let's go ahead, and I want to cut the music, and we are going to introduce our guest, which is going to be Miss Simran. Simran, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm really happy to be here. Hey, everyone. Glad to be doing this session, and hopefully we have like some good insights for me to take back, but for you guys to take back as well. So
Yeah, definitely. We're super excited to have you. And so, Simran, Thank you first and foremost for coming on here and being brave enough to share a little bit of some of the insights with your company and what you do. It's different, kind of dissecting your outreach models and methods live, but it's super valuable to everyone that's going to be watching. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
I appreciate you having me on.
Awesome. Cool. So to kind of introduce yourself to the audience, would love to, introduce you. Tell a little bit about your company and what you do and what you're looking to get out of today's session.
So I own an agency that provides software developers to companies worldwide. So we provide software developers for projects, for hiring purposes, for time periods, any sort of tech solution that you need. We sort of have this. We sort of have a team, like an inbuilt, highly skilled team that we have sourced, gone through like a rigorous vetting procedure. So it sort of helps organizations skip the steps that they need for hiring and
Mhm.
just sort of get right to what they need as and when they need it. So I think that's the easiest way to put it. As we go through the presentation, we will be possibly going more deep into that.
Yep, definitely. And so for everyone out there, I want to be very clear. Just because you may not own a staffing company, just because you don't have the same business model as Simran, a lot of these practices that we're going to be going over today are totally still applicable to you. You can take certain bits of information, tweak them, and really kind of cultivate your own outreach process, right? So again, any questions, any comments? Even if you're kind of looking at something and you have questions about your own company itself, would love to put them in the chat and would love to have you there. So awesome. Let's go ahead and get in. Let's learn a little bit more about Simran's business, kind of her current outreach methods, and we're just going to be breaking it down step by step. So let's go ahead and jump over. Awesome. So, as we know, again, she is with My Next Developer. And just a brief overview is My Next Developer is a startup that provides tech solutions, including highly vetted software developers with varying skills primed to work on a contractual/freelance basis. If anyone out there has worked in software or any type of company that has some sort of software service, whether it's SaaS, whether it's like on-site software, you guys know how important it is to have good developers, especially on the sales side, right? So I've worked with businesses before where the development team was lacking greatly, right? And it highly affects other aspects of the company. So obviously what Simran is and her team are doing at My Next Developer is extremely valuable and important because development is one, very expensive, and two, it's very difficult to source high quality talent. I'm sure that you can kind of elaborate on a little bit of this, Simran.
Yeah. I think a lot of people tend to skip over the fact of how important it is to match the correct developer to a business. For example, if someone asks for a Flutter developer, that's a fairly basic generalization. But within that, there's so many other things that need to be discussed about what the company requires from the developer. And I think what we do is that we highly vet all of the developers that come on board because we want to match them absolutely correctly. So very often, even if there's a requirement for a Flutter developer, we will be asking a lot of more questions to make sure that within our pool of developers, we pick the right candidate for you. It's about the work ethic. It's about the kind of communication you need. It's about maybe the niche of work that you need. So yeah, I think that is something that really is something we focus on.
Awesome, cool. Before we move forward, we just got our first question from Discord, so I want to take a second to address that. This is from Yavor. I hope I said that. I hope I pronounced your name right. It says, I have spent the last month trying to find ways of outreach and lead generation to offer my paid ad services. I tried LinkedIn scraping with Get Prospect, but that didn't work out. I barely got any leads worth outreaching to. I've also tried a few websites which generate lead lists based on a few options. That didn't really work out either. how would you recommend for me to find leads to outreach to? Great question. That's actually going to kind of be the next segment of what we're about to run into as Simran. So I think a lot of the advice that I'm about to provide to her is definitely going to be something that you can take away from. So stay tuned. Give me a few minutes and let's jump into it. So jumping over to the next slide, right? We are taking a look at your ideal customer profile. So I know that you target startups and Fortune 500 companies, and the requirements for those prospects are going to be basic round of funding. So what I want to do is I want to get a little bit more specific with you, and because this is very general information, this is a very it's a very broad audience, right? We both know that startups come and go. I mean, there's probably tens of thousands of startups that happen every single year. We all know the statistic that it's very unlikely for most of them to get out of their first year and then to proceed into their second, third, fourth year, yada, yada, yada. So if you could be a little bit more specific, I want to understand like what specific type of startups are we looking at? Are we looking at SaaS companies? Are we looking at other businesses that you want to partner with that are offering some sort of staffing services? Who's like your really ideal client?
Okay, so within like just to first tell you the difference between the startups and the Fortune 500, we provide, like I said, two types of services. One is project based, right? So in the project based, they would be hiring us to create a website or create an app, and it would be a one-time thing, and they're done, right? Whereas an established company would more likely be hiring a resource for a time period. For okay, we need someone for 3 months, for a year, for 2 years, something like that. So I think that's where the targeting sort of goes in two different directions. Startups are for projects. Fortune 500s are for time-based contracts.
Got
And within startups, I think we mostly like have gotten clients. Wouldn't say that we've necessarily targeted only those, but we've gotten clients that are mostly involved in e-commerce. So they're looking to drop shipping, stuff like that. So
it.
those are the ones that have actually closed with us. But we aren't in a position right now to close our minds or close like any other avenue. We are open to clients from anywhere, honestly, as long as they can afford us and they have a tech requirement. So
Interesting. So, breaking down the difference between startups and Fortune 500 companies, and to kind of reiterate, startups is going to be more focused around contractual, long-term. Fortune 500 are more like time length, kind of, I would assume, by the project, right?
right.
So, if you had to kind of break down, where's your revenue coming from? Are you more with startups? Are you more with Fortune 500 companies? Are you making more money from or I would say, is your business more centered around one-time projects, or are you sourcing more towards contracts?
Okay, so I'm gonna answer this with what we have right now and what we want, right?
Okay.
What we have right now is a lot of startups and project-based clients. However, that is a one-time and done thing. And like you said, startups often don't necessarily make it and they'll end up shutting down after. So they're not going to become a recurring client. Our sort of focus is more to tie up with Fortune 500 companies that become recurring clients because they'd be hiring people for time periods. So as and when they require a developer, we should be the go-to source. So they would be recurring. So right now we have a lot of startups. We're working with a lot of startups. We want to be working with more established companies.
Okay, cool. So you're looking for more project base, and that's going to be kind of your bread and butter. That's where you're going to be
Looking
able
for
to.
more, looking for not project based. Project based would be a one time sort of one and done thing. We are looking for more of like a time period contractual base client
Great
because then they'll
contract.
keep hiring as they need.
Cool.
Yeah.
Amazing. Awesome. So before we move on, I know that your requirements are basic round of funding. Do you have any sort of other requirements that you'd look at? Maybe something when you meet with people, it's a very common objection that you get that you're running into that you could put a requirement behind, or is it really just funding and that they have money?
Well, on a basic level, it's funding, but I think the only reason we've ever rejected a client that's had the funding has been because if their work ethic or their communication is not quite on par with ours, because we are a remote team, we're working remotely, and if you aren't able to have the same sort of language the way we're speaking, or the same kind of ethic of how we're working, we've noticed that it leads to a bad experience on both sides. So it just doesn't make sense then. If we can't give you what you want the way you want it, it doesn't make sense. So I think that would be the only other requirement. But as long as they can afford us, we're a startup ourselves. Like we're
So there's
taking.
a little bit of a culture fit in there. Like they have to have the culture of the company. They have to have that want and that need of what you're offering to them.
Right, right. And also they have to have some sort of like consideration for the fact that we do have developers across the time zones.
Hmm.
But some clients can be a little bit over demanding, like they sign on a project for a certain amount and then they say, oh, just do this a little bit more, a little bit more. And those aren't our ideal clients. Like we are all about doing favors for clients, but um not when they expect it before we start. So
Definitely.
yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks for sharing. So we have a question from Discord that I want to show. It's actually about ideal customer profile.
Mhm.
So Mohammed asked, how would you find your ICP? Is it just what majority of your clients are? How do I know if my ICP I chose is good? Great question. So the way that I would define it is obviously your ideal customer has to have some sort of money, right? I actually spoke with someone a while back who was targeting college students and trying to get their services out to college students and trying to charge a premium for it. I'm like, listen, you're trying to sell to broke people, right? And it doesn't make sense because these people they don't have money, right? And so one, you have to make sure that your ideal clients have some sort of funding, have some sort of money that they can buy into your services. Number two is figure out a niche that you're passionate about. I know that I've learned this personally that I've tried to work with clients or bring on clients where I just wasn't passionate about their industry, right? And so it made it very hard for me to be fully committed to them and to be fully devoted to their business and know how to achieve the best results possible. So I just couldn't relate with them. So I mean, probably in the beginning you're not going to have a super defined ICP because you're just trying to focus on client acquisition. But definitely take a focus on what industries you want to go into and who you want to service and who you want to help. So great question. We have another question from Ophir, but I'm going to wait because that's actually going to be more valuable in an upcoming slide. So let's jump to the next slide. And what we're going to be looking at now is your current sales funnel. So right now, you're targeting job postings on LinkedIn, AngelList, Y Combinator, Crunchbase, and A-Team. So obviously, this is going to be a really good lead source for you because if a company is posting that they want to hire developers, it's amazing, right? Because we all know it's going to
Yeah.
cost them money to go through interviews. It's going to cost them money to go through to hire recruiters, to onboard these people, to do all these various different things, right? And
Right.
so what you're doing to an extent is you're actually saving them time up front from the vetting process as you are already vetting these developers. And you're also taking a little bit of risk on your side because if I remember correctly, when we originally spoke, you're actually able to replace people if they don't work out, and you don't take a large upfront fee or percentage of their salary like over time. Is that correct?
That is correct. We have like a percentage that we take, but um, yeah, there's nothing like upfront about it. Like it's very like set in stone before. It's not project based. It's we've discussed it with the developers. It's all pre-decided.
All right, so you're saving time, and everyone knows that time is money, and time is the most valuable aspect. So,
Yeah.
again, B2B affiliation. So you're partnering with various organizations who can refer, right? So I assume that are you getting referrals through current clients to other businesses, or are you just reaching out to other businesses to develop some sort of partnership program with them?
So it's not current clients, of course, they refer people, but that's not necessarily a funnel that I would say because we have like 15 clients. So even if they refer, it's not necessarily a huge funnel. This is more tying up with businesses that are For example, designers or marketing people that would be talking to companies that have recently gotten funding because they'd be pouring funding into marketing, right? They
Hmm.
might also be looking to upscale their tech game. So we tie up with these businesses and say, if you get clients that have these requirements, we'd appreciate it if you refer them to us, and we'd cut you in on a bit of the action as part of the referral.
Awesome. Cool. Perfect. So let's jump over to the next slide here, and we're going to be talking about some of the outbound lead gen that you're currently doing. So you're targeting people through emails, which obviously anyone knows you can get this information through LinkedIn. You can scrape emails really from anywhere. If
Yeah.
there's a job posting, there's more than likely going to be a recruiter that's involved with that job posting, and it's very easy to get their email. So um, the actual lead scraping itself is very simple with this type of industry. LinkedIn, so you can also send personal messages because, again, on LinkedIn, if you're looking at a job posting itself, what you can actually do is click on the recruiter. Not all the time, but most of the time, there's going to be some sort of recruiter involved. So you can just click on their profile and message them directly. So that's also a great avenue. Direct, so responding to job posts. So I'm actually interested. What do you mean by responding to job posts? Are you,
This
yeah, go ahead and
not this
elaborate.
is a very typical thing that we do. Basically, if there are job posts at these websites, we do reach out to the recruiters, but we also are aware of the fact that these recruiters are being reached out to by multiple others. So there's a very high chance that they're not going to maybe look at us. So we take, for example, if they require like a full stack developer, we take someone that matches the profile that they've sent. We take someone from our organization and have them submit an application to them as they normally would for a job. And we sort of, if the recruiter gets in touch, that's sort of how we get in to be like, hey, this person is available, ready to hire. How about we talk about hire this person? That's good. But for your next hire, why don't you talk to us first before posting and doing the entire spiel? So that's sort of, it's not necessarily like a direct way of doing it, but it's sort of getting our foot in the door and starting a conversation that maybe this time they hire the dev directly, but then the next time they know us.
Cool, awesome. Thanks for elaborating on it. It's pretty interesting. Okay, so with relationship building, obviously Slack and Discord, there's different channels that you can join. For people who don't understand Discord or Slack, they're I mean, they're like chat channels, right? Like they're an application that's built to connect with other people. There are communities on both Slack and Discord that you can join in, just like discord.gg/furlough. And you're able to find various different opportunities through some of these channels. They're often being advertised all over the internet through social media, stuff like that. So again, to your point and having this avenue, I think this is important as well. I want to answer a couple questions before we move forward. So Cutler asked, will these slides be, or will I be able to find these slides after the event? This entire session is going to be recorded. So you'll be able to find the replay on YouTube and on our Furlough LinkedIn. Two questions from Ophir. So one, we're going to have, how do you define your value proposition for these services? Why should I opt into your services and not to your competitors? That is a great question. And on the next slide, we actually kind of have a breakdown of this. But Simran, if you want to go ahead and answer, feel free to.
Sure. Okay. I feel like we are similar to a lot of other agencies that exist in the space right now, in the industry right now. But I think something that we focus a lot on is a more empathetic approach to the tech solutions. So we suppose you're hiring someone from our organization. Any other agency would just give you that person, you've hired that person, and that's that, right? And then just call you every 2 weeks to make sure you're happy. We have more of like a collaborative approach. So for example, if that dev at any point is stuck or unable to, he has to take like a couple of days off or something like that, our team sort of works in a collaborative way to help him get over whatever obstacles, maybe step in when needed. So your project doesn't stop. And there's also the factor of, suppose you don't quite like your developer for whatever the reasons may be. No questions asked. We sort of replace the developer with someone else from a team who may be more suited to you. So it is a more collaborative approach. I mean, I think just yesterday, one of the developers that we've hired out called me and said that he wasn't able to figure something out. And I asked the rest of my team, and they, no questions asked, helped him understand how to get that done. So I think that is something that's kind of lacking in other agencies right now. They're very cut and dry with the, okay, you've hired this person and that's that, you know? So I think
Yeah.
that's one differentiating factor. But in every other way, we're pretty similar to the other agencies. Um,
Right.
but there is still a gap in the market. There is still demand and supply that's not being met. So that's kind of why we're here.
Awesome. Love that. And just to address Ophir's next question is speaking from my own perspective and want to hear how you deal with this objection. Why should I hire general skilled devs and not teams that have specific expertise in my niche that fits my needs? That's a great objection, right? So, I mean, from my perspective, right, and I don't even work with devs. I don't necessarily work in this industry and never have. But what I would say is it's almost like an executive assistant. You can have an executive assistant to some extent work on multiple projects and carry out multiple needs, right? So if you're looking for someone that is that has a general skill, right? We could take a carpenter, an electrician, something like that. Now, they can do multiple things with multiple projects, right? They're skilled and they're able to do commercial, they can do residential, they can do house, they can do all sorts of various different buildings, right? And so what I see from my point of view, and Simran, I would love to hear yours, is there is a need for general skilled devs, but there's also a need for someone who's very, very, very specific, right? And
Right.
I may make myself sound like an idiot here, but we're looking at like a general dev. Maybe they might know multiple languages, right? They might know Python, they might know Java, they might know other various different programming languages, or you might have a project where you need a really skilled Python developer where this general dev might not fit. So I think it's really going to depend on the need, and I think like the objection to that is what I would respond with is figure out the need of the client. If they
Exactly.
need a very skilled person, that's who you should be pushing towards them. If they need someone that's more generalized for their project, that's who you should be pushing for them. And Simran, I believe that you offer both, correct?
We do. We do. So I think when a client enters into a call with us, they sort of have a preconceived notion as to, okay, we require a full stack developer or something like that. But we sort of discount that in the beginning because the client is not a techie. They think they may know what they want. Maybe they're right, but maybe they're not. So we go through like a bunch of calls. Like we will be going through that later, but we do a deep dive into what exactly you need. And at times we've told clients, we're always truthful. We tell clients sometimes that, hey, I don't think you need us at all. And sometimes I've told them that, okay, no, you think that you need that, but let me tell you why that's not exactly the best decision. I don't think full stack is the best. I think you need someone who's very, very much part of that niche. You can also hire a full stack, like you said, if they still continue to want to do that because they want more of a entrepreneurial or managerial role for the developer, then I think that works. But for people who, once we do a deep dive into their needs, we know what to tell them. And we do have people who are both in niche as well as general developers that are like, they do know other languages, they know of other languages. They may not be experts, but they could potentially manage a developer who's doing that language. So, yeah.
Yeah, and overall, I mean, the response can be discovery. You have to figure out your client's needs, and I think that, and I want to kind of point out real quick before we move forward that I see a lot where, kind of to your point, Simran, where you're talking with a prospect, you're talking with a client, and they might not even fully understand what they need. They might not even understand that what they're doing could potentially be wrong. And
Right.
so, what you have to do is you have to influence them to make a certain decision. How do you influence someone? You educate them. If you're educating people on a process, right? You're using your experience and your expertise and your knowledge, and you're sharing that with them, and you're helping guide them along the path. They're
Mhm.
going to be able to still come up with their own conclusion. I hear a lot of people in sales saying that you have to convince someone. You have to convince someone. I'm saying it right now. If you have to convince someone to buy, either your product's trash or you don't know how to sell. You should never be convincing someone to buy something from you. You
Yeah.
should be like you need to be an influential person to that prospect or to that client, and be someone that they can trust, be someone they can talk to, and that they can come to. So
100%. I think something that's worked for me has been I really focus on a lot of active listening. I feel like even sometimes my own team members will also enter the call with a preconceived notion that no, I don't think he wants that. I think he wants something else, right? Like, and I'm going to pitch this to him, which again is the wrong approach. We do a lot of active listening. We ask a lot of questions about what they require, each feature that they need, like to what extent do they need it, because that helps us determine the expertise level that they require of a developer. And after I've asked so many questions to the client, I've noticed that they take my suggestions pretty well because they are aware of the fact that I've asked a lot about them. I've taken all the information that they have. So now when I'm giving them advice, um, it is going to be accurate because I know a lot more than I did before.
yeah,
So I haven't, I feel like a lot of active listening, I feel like that's something that doesn't happen very often.
for sure. Yeah. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. You need to listen with the intent to understand and not with the intent to respond. If
Right.
you're listening and the first thing that you're thinking of before someone is done talking is to respond, you're shooting yourself in the foot. And you're not actually showing empathy with the person that you're talking to, and you're just trying to get a point across. And if that's your whole motive of the call, you're being selfish and you need to go back to the drawing board.
Yeah.
So I really, really, really want to jump into some of the other things. So let's jump over to the next slide because we have a lot to talk about, and we're already 30 minutes through. This is crazy. Okay, so benefit to the business. If you take a look at My Next Developer compared to typical employment, virtual employment, we're looking at time to source an engineer at 0 to 2 weeks compared to 1 to 4 months, which I can attest. I know that this is true. I know other companies, when you're looking at employing, there's onboarding, there's just so much that is involved with getting someone fully ramped up. So yeah, it does take 1 to 4 months, and honestly I'd say 1 month to get an employee ramped up to put them on a project is pretty quick. So if a company can do that, impressive, but I would say it probably is going to be more between 2 to 4 months. Recruiting fee. So you've got zero, they've got 8 to 15%, and then virtual employment is zero. So can you speak a little bit about the recruiting fee?
I think recruiting fee refers to, for example, if a company is hiring, right? They post their jobs on websites, right? Certain websites do take a cut, but they also have their own sources of like freelance recruiters, right? That take
Mhm.
like a standard percentage for every person that they hire. Where we don't really have a recruiting fee. You're hiring a developer, you're paying us, and there's just a fixed fee for that. Like we don't have a percentage that we take for every person that you hire at all.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Nick, yes, this is live. And then we had a another question before we move forward in one of the chats. Arjun says, "Do the amount of questions you have to ask prospect depend on the industry you're in?" Um, I mean, yes and no, because if you're selling something that's like very elaborate, like let's just use B2B and B2C, for example. B2B is going to be a more complex sale. There's typically going to be more decision makers. You're going to be dealing with more money. So, yeah, for sure, you're going to have to ask more questions. If I'm selling to someone directly, it's typically going to be less questions than as if I'm going after a business. I wouldn't necessarily like put a number on the amount of questions that you should be asking. Obviously, don't make it overkill. Don't ask them 25 or 30 questions. And also, another thing is don't stack questions. So, if I'm talking to Simran and I'm trying to sell her something, I'm not going to ask her 3 questions in one breath. I'm going to ask her individual questions to get individual responses. Because if you're stacking questions, what you'll do is you'll actually cause confusion with your prospect, and you're going to be getting really half-assed answers because you asked a half-assed question. So be a little weary of that. So going through trial period, you offer a trial period, guaranteed quality, failure rates very low, easy 24-hour replacement. You spoke about that before. If someone's sick, if someone doesn't work out or anything like that, you can easily replace them, and you also can source to an entire team and ask questions and get responses for your clients, which is another added value proposition for you. Termination costs are none, and it's a quick and easy hiring process. So that's great. Love it. All right, so we're going to jump over now to some of the outreach messages. I believe the first one, is going to be the initial outreach.
You're gonna
So,
have fun with this.
Simran, I
Yeah.
have to be honest with you. This is a lot. This is a lot of information that you're throwing at someone the first time that they're ever even speaking with you, right? So I want to break this down, right? So hi name. I came across your company name on platform, and I find the space you're in quite interesting. According to my research, the hub for bespoke and fine jewelry has started to majorly shift from Antwerp to Dubai. I noticed that your company has expanded from Dubai to Bahrain and Doha in the past quarter. So let's break down that first kind of initial pitch. I came across your company on this is fluff, and everyone uses that. I get emails and messages every single day.
Hmm.
I came across your company. I saw you here. I saw you there. Yada yada yada. Like for me, and you have to be very careful here because what they're going to see before they even open up the email, they're going to see probably the high name, and then they're going to see between I came across and probably to according to my research or the hub. That's the initial text that they're going to see before they open up the email. So let's keep that in mind. If everyone is kind of using that same one liner and I look at my inbox and all I see is I came across or I saw, I came across, I saw, your email's not going to be standing out, right? And so
Right.
we want to be very we want to be very careful about the initial text that we use because you have I think it's like 40 or 50 characters roughly on email platforms that they see before they open it. So you want to stand out, right?
Right.
So you can make this a little bit more personalized, and I assume I know that you are using a email outreach tool. Do you mind sharing that with everyone?
Sorry, the email outreach tool. Oh, okay. I'm using MailTrack. So
Okay.
it's basically like a plugin or an integration into Gmail where you
Hmm.
can run campaigns. You can create a template, sort of have text on like a different page or a different Excel sheet, and it plugs it in. So, for example, hi name, and then the paragraph under that was like inserted from outside. Um, and yeah, and MailTrack sort of tracks open rates, whether they clicked on any of the links, if they opened it again after a certain amount of time, a bunch of metrics.
Okay, cool. So I want to actually touch up on metrics before we move forward because you brought up a really good point and you shared some of the metrics with me. I don't have them in this slide, but I
Yeah,
briefly want to talk about them.
yeah,
When we're looking at metrics for email, guys, it's important to understand that some of these metrics may not be true. And I'm going to explain a little bit about how these systems work and why you can be getting skewed data. So I'm pulling up, so you're looking at email one, which is this is interesting. Your open rate is 53%, but your engagement rate is 53.2%. So you have a 0.2% increase on engagement than open rate. So how does that happen? How is that even possible if people aren't opening it? For people
so
listening, yeah, go
so
ahead.
what we could see, people were clicking on our LinkedIn. Like I've linked my LinkedIn down below. I've linked my partner's LinkedIn as well. They weren't clicking on the calendar link to fix a meeting, but they were going on our LinkedIn and checking it out. So we were getting notifications for that. I'm not sure if the 52.5% is accurate because the open rate is for unique opens. So some people have gone off the email, come back, opened it again, and then clicked again. So the engagement rate could be higher. So
So engagement rate is just a click on the link, right?
yeah.
Okay, so a lot of people don't know this, but I want to be careful with this. A lot of people use mail filters. Mail filters like Mimecast, Barracuda, Gmail has as native mail filters. Microsoft has native mail filters. And what happens is that before the email is even delivered into the inbox, your email is actually being sent through a mail filter, and there's thing things that actually part of this mail filter system is actually going into your link to see if it's a safe link.
Oh,
So it knows if it should actually deliver it to your inbox or not. Other platforms like Proofpoint. And so what we saw, 'cause when I used to work in cybersecurity, is that we would see actually sometimes where people, it would say that they opened it and that they clicked on a link when they actually never did, and it actually wasn't ever delivered to their mailbox. So if any link that you're sending within an email is prone to being scanned, is not a very popular known URL. And what I mean by that is like google.com, right? Or something like that, which you've got one, two, three, four, you've got 5 links in here, right? So you've got LinkedIn, My Next Developer, you've got 2 links for your founders, and you have a Google Link Calendar. So the reason why they're not clicking on the Google Link Calendar is because Google is a known URL. They're clicking on LinkedIn and maybe the website and those because those domains are easily spoofed, right? And
right.
so what it's doing is it's actually checking to see if that's a safe link. So this is why I always say try not to include links in your cold outreach, because you're going to have less times where it's actually going to be delivered more often into the mailbox, as opposed to being scanned or thrown through a system or something like that. And so you'll get, I'm not saying you're going to get 100% true data, but if you're not putting a bunch of links into an email where someone has never heard from you, your email has never came across their system, and they've never interacted with you, you're going to be less likely to get blocked, and you're going to be less likely to get falsified data. So keep that in mind on your outreach.
So I
Secondly,
have a question there. Is it the same for attachments?
yes, this is the same for attachments. Yep.
I've got an
So
attachment mail as well, so make it 6.
yeah, so it'll actually open up PDFs, it'll open up Word docs, it'll open up anything like that, because what happens is if I have a PDF attached, let's just say it's malicious, and I click on that, the second I click on that, you have full access to my account if it's a malicious attachment, right? So every single attachment is getting scanned to see if it's malicious. If there's something in there that it doesn't know about, right? Let's just say you guys have a domain that's just not public or not used very often, it could automatically block that email, and the person will never, ever, ever, ever see it. So I highly recommend not sending attachments and not embedding links into your email on the initial cold outreach. If you've been in communication with these people, it's different, but on your initial outreach, I would take all of that out of it. Secondly, on the initial opening line, it came across your company, right? I want to refrain back to that. So since you're using an automated outreach, it's very hard to make it personalized, where you can maybe prompt a certain piece of information like congratulations on this, or I saw your article here. So what I would do is I would prompt a question that's actually going to gauge some sort of interest for the prospect to want to open up the email. So in your case, you could prompt a curiosity question like, have you ever been burned with developers in the past? You know, have you, how are you maintaining your development team? Curious to, curious to understand something that's going to prompt them to actually want to open up that email and read more. Now, when they open up the email itself, we're looking at a wall of text, and this can be intimidating to someone, right? Because what I see as soon as I open this up is this is a sales pitch.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It's a complete sales pitch, and definitely the incorrect approach. This is how we started our mails, and I'm looking at it now, and I'm like, you're gonna have some fun ripping apart the rest of it.
Yeah, and so I want to make it clear to everyone out there, like your initial touch point, your initial conversation with someone should not be pitching them. It
Mhm.
shouldn't. It should just be having simple conversation, right? And so I try to keep my cold outreach emails between like 3 to 5 lines tops, like absolute tops.
Right.
And I try to provoke questions. I almost try to like poke the bear to try to get something out of them. And I want to make it about them. So, so what it is after we go down there, we're like, I'm looking to connect with you as I believe we are uniquely placed to provide and satisfy your tech related needs as you continue to grow your business. So you're starting out with and we,
Yeah.
right? And so that positioning of that message again is kind of making it about yourself and not so much about them.
Right.
Um, and then it goes into the entire pitch. So I would take all of the pitch out. I wouldn't include why they should be going with you or why your services are the best because you don't even know if they're technically qualified. And it's much, much easier. I want everyone to take away from this. It is so much easier to pitch to someone on a call than it is through an email. It is so difficult to try to close someone through a text message or through an email. It's very difficult. So, really, this is how I would fix it. I would take out all the links, I would take out all the attachments, I would take out the entire pitch. So everything between my next developer and going down to uh, I have the technical founder. I would take all of that out. I would fix the first three sentences to are you having trouble or are you having issues with this or that, and then go into I've been looking in your industry for the hub of bespoke and fine jewelry. I see that there's a major shift between Antwerp to Dubai. Are you having any issues with this shift? Or are you struggling with staffing or like again, you're kind of poking the bear. You're understanding what they're going through, but you're trying to understand, do they have a pain point? Do they have some sort of issue? So again, cutting it down to 3 to 5 lines tops, asking a couple of questions, like 2 questions tops, and putting a little piece of information in there that lets you know or lets them know that you understand their industry and what they're going through, I think would be an optimal way of answering this. We have a really good question I want to address real quick before we move on. And this is going to be from Mohammed. And he says, what do you think of the AI that generates personalized messages in the first line? I've never used it, but heard it's useful. I'm sorry. I'm not if
Yeah.
I've yet
Yeah.
to see an AI that is like really good at actually personalizing the first line and making it not sound like a robot. Like I've seen platforms like Expandy. I've seen Apollo's AI, which I have no hate on Apollo. I think it's a great platform. I've seen their AI. I've seen other AIs. I'm tired of AI writing personalized stuff. It all sounds the same. All of it sounds the same. I don't
AI
think it's
doesn't have a personality of their own. I feel like if you look at my first line as well, I've written it as if I've written it myself, but it looks like it could have been AI because there's no personality. There's no inserting myself as a sort of not inserting myself as an I sort of thing, but sort of like a hey, am I being funny or am I being like serious or am I throwing some stats at you? Like, I feel like that's something AI cannot capture. I've tried a lot, not possible.
Yeah, it's just not there yet.
As
It's
of
not
now.
there. And
As of now.
I think AI and personalized cannot go in the same sentence when it comes to sales. It just can't. I'm sorry. That's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. Let's jump over to the follow up email that you have in this sequence. So, taking a look. So this is actually what goes out within the sequence if there's no reply. So this is shorter. I like this. So happy Thursday. Hope you had a productive week. Just wanted to bump up this mail thread so to make sure that you didn't miss it. So I know Joe's out there, and I know that he loves the Happy Thursdays. So shout out to Joe. Okay, first line, fluff. All of it's fluff.
Yeah.
Happy Thursday, like it's Thursday. Who's really happy, right? No, I'm just kidding. Hope you had a productive week. Just wanted to bump up this. So I want to put emphasis. I want to emphasize. Don't use the word just. If you're just doing something, or you're just following up, or you're just touching base with them, you're just wasting their time, and you just don't care. If you're just doing something, you're literally saying that I'm just doing this because I have to and I don't really care to. Take
Hmm.
that word out of your definition completely. I don't think anyone should ever be using the word just. If you're talking in a very if you're talking in a very kind of laid back manner around where you're just having conversation with friends, cool, perfect. It's okay to use it there. I would never say I'm just following up, because as soon as I read that, I'm like, this guy's just trying to do his job. Click.
Right, right. I get it. Deleting just from my dictionary now.
Right, definitely. Now, the second line is interesting. Did you know since the pandemic, demand for contract developers has increased by an average of 22% per year. Contract developers have been found to increase efficiency and reduce expenses by an average of 30%. Stay ahead of the curve, adapt to the times, and help your company grow via MND's team of agile world-class developers. So I like the way that you're trying to educate the prospect here. You're trying to give them a piece of information. However, I think it's the wrong piece of information. I'm gonna tell you why. Number
Okay.
one, we're talking about pandemic. Pandemic's like way in the past.
Right.
It's just people were so burnt out from the pandemic and were so tired of hearing about it that it's almost like you're starting off on a negative note, even though your message is not negative. It can be perceived as negative because people think pandemic, crap, 2020, hard time for us. Just don't want to talk about it. I like how you're trying to educate them though. And what I think that you should educate them more on is maybe not the demand for contract developers, because the demand is very generalized. It's not really personalized to them. I
Mhm.
think that, and I'm going to go back over to the previous email that you have, is you talking about the shift that people are seeing within their industry. How about you bring up a couple of pain points that you talk about with your clients, data that you're receiving, on what are some of the common pain points that they're seeing from that shift? And you can educate them. Hey, listen, our other clients are running into these issues. We've helped them overcome these hurdles, and we want to help you. That's the way that I would be educating them. I would really target a very specific pain point there. Again, take the links out completely. Wouldn't do anything with the link. Let's set up a quick 10-minute call as per your convenience. This is the thing that I have with trying to pitch someone a call, is that I don't know. I take it personally, and I would love to hear the audience's feedback on this. Honestly, I take it as if someone's trying to pitch me a call before I've ever responded to them or had a conversation with them. I take it as if like their objective isn't really to necessarily help me within the email. Their objective is to just try to get me onto a call to pitch me. And so I think, yes, prompting the question to get someone onto a call itself is very important, but I think it needs to be asked at the right time, right? Think about
Right.
it as a first date. If I'm on a first date with someone, the first question I'm not going to ask them like, "Hey, do you want to go on a vacation with me? Do you want to do you want to go on this like retreat with me, or something like where you're asking for a more intimate moment before you actually get to know them? It's going to come off a little weird. So I personally would take out the pitching the call. I would try to strike up a conversation with them first, get them engaged, get them interested, get some sort of feedback from them or response, and then I would go in for actually trying to pitch the call and get them booked.
I think
Um,
I think the reason why we put the call in out here was mainly because there was a sense of urgency. The leads that we were getting were um, they had posted for jobs, right? They were actively looking for candidates. Every day, candidates were sort of reaching out to them. So we didn't want it to make it too slow a process. We wanted to get them on call. So technically, it's not like we've reached out to them out of the blue. Like that's why you mentioned in the earlier email where we found them, because we're actively saying that, hey, technically, in a roundabout way, they've started the conversation by posting that job, and we are one of the replies to that job. It's kind of the messaging we wanted to get across. Didn't come about the way that we wanted it to, but that's kind of what we wanted.
well, hold on. Just because they posted the job doesn't mean that they reached out first.
No,
They
right. It's more like a response to like they've reached out in general to like people who would be interested or could help them with that. So our response should be that that's what we were looking at when we reached out to you. So you already know what we're talking about. And
Right.
then let's get let's get on a call, sort of.
I think possibly moving that down into maybe where you end it, like thanks in regards, Simran, head of B2B partnerships or head of B2B and partnerships, and then having a booking link there and saying like let's book a meeting to talk about the message I sent. Something like that would be
Okay.
a little bit easier. Again, I still think that you're trying to pitch something to them if you're putting it within the message itself. And if you're prompting questions and trying to poke the bear and start a conversation, I get the sense of and the urgency for the actual message itself, but I do think that if you get a conversation, your conversion rates are going to be more meaningful, and you're going to have a better time. You're going to already have some sort of established trust with them because you understand their needs and you've already conversated with them to some sort of extent.
And I definitely think you have a point, because even if we miss out on that candidate being placed, we will have a relationship with them, so the next one would possibly, work out. So again, like, it would be a little bit short-sighted to just try and close that one candidate when I could do so much more.
Yep, definitely. Cool. So I know we only have a couple minutes left. I want to just jump over straight to the LinkedIn outreach. I've had so much fun this session. This has been super valuable and meaningful. Thank you. So, hi, Jonathan. Came across your profile. Already know what I think about that. Everyone's saying that. I'll pull up my LinkedIn DMs right now. Everyone's like, I came across your profile. It's like, yeah, everyone has.
Yeah.
And notice that you have requirements and our resources are aligned. I actually like that. Here are your requirements, and here's how we can provide resources to your requirements. I love that. And if you can actually somewhat personalize that and just copy some of their requirements and put it in, again, don't make it super long, but just say, hey, here's some of your requirements, and here's how we can actually provide resources and help you out immediately.
Yeah.
And
You
then,
see extra requirements as placeholders. So this is a template. So the placeholder would be requirements for X,
oh,
Y.
perfect then. Perfect. So let's cut out the fluff a little bit. Let's show off the hey, I noticed or hey, I was looking at your requirements, which are XYZ, and we can provide resources XYZ to help you to help you come up and resolve some of these requirements that are happening. I've sent an intro via email and would love to connect and discuss possibilities. I think that would be a great call to outreach message. It's showing that you've taken the time to not only message them and understand them through LinkedIn, but also to message them via email as well. So I think overall, this would be a great message. It shows that you've taken the time to read and understand, and that would be valuable to me as a prospect.
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, definitely. Our LinkedIn outreach has performed better. So, yeah, I guess this message kind of did work a little bit.
Cool. Awesome. So we are coming up on the end of the show. And first and foremost, Simran, I want to thank you again for coming on and for breaking all of this down with us and for being transparent to the audience. That's something that is super neat to see. And I hope you found tons of value from this session as well.
I definitely did, and I would encourage, like, everybody else who's watching, anyone who wants to learn. On this community, I've constantly shared practices that I've done, the way that I've operated, and I've gotten some really valuable feedback. And in the past month, I've learned more than I have in the last like 3 or 4 months. So I would encourage a lot more people to do this. The only way is up, right? Like, you can't go worse from here. So may as well.
Definitely. Cool. Awesome. Well, Simran, thank you so much for coming on. We greatly appreciate you.
Thank you, Jacob, for having the session, and yeah, thanks everybody that came and watched. And if anybody has any suggestions apart from the stuff that we discussed, please reach out to me. Would love to continue learning, and yeah, I look forward to getting to know everybody as well.
Cool. Awesome. Cool. So I want to talk about our next event, which is today at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's going to be growth hacking, best practices to supercharge your clients. We're going to be live on all of our platforms again. It's going to be hosted by my great friend, Ophir. And he's going to be dropping knowledge bomb after knowledge bomb. Discord.gg/Furlough. And then you'll be able to access us again through LinkedIn and YouTube. Thank you, everyone, so much for attending. I really appreciate everyone's comments, engagement, and I'm really looking forward to hosting the next Sales Success Unleashed, which is going to be 2 weeks from today. So that is going to be not next Tuesday, but the Tuesday after. If I can pull up my calendar, I'll be able to tell you the exact date. It's going to be August 8th at 10 a.m. Eastern. So looking forward to hosting again. And I will be posting to my social media channels as well as Furloughs and inside of the Discord what the event will entail. And we'll go from there. I hope everyone has an awesome rest of your day, an awesome rest of your week, and look forward to seeing you all in some of the future events. Have an awesome day, everyone.